time.
I agree with Johnny. I agree.
I'll give him a second. I think he's dropped out. You know what? Stell, I'll come to you, mate. Stop on that, mate. I'll come to you, mate. Same question, buddy. How do you take it, mate? Go where you want. We've got a long time to chin over this one.
So, what was the question? The transfer window as a whole?
Yeah, like how do you know? There's so many ways that you can interpret it, right? Like, you know, were the best signings opportunistic, and then on that basis, were they lucky, or was it all by design? You know, did we sell enough? Did we buy enough? Did we have cover? Talk to me.
I've actually got a very logical answer to this. Okay, I knew this was going to come up tonight, being transfer deadline day. So
genius.
It all starts with Daniel Levy saying, we want to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League. That set the expectation. That's the marker. That's what every fan is now going to turn to when we discuss the direction we're going in, right? So no matter what we do this window, everything will lead back to those comments. So you then hear the chairman say, we want to win the biggest trophies around. Okay, love it. About time. We've been wanting to hear that for 3 decades. Bring it on. What then happens is 2 of our main rivals to win those big trophies have absolute top draw transfer windows. Arsenal and Liverpool, like stupendous transfer windows. That now sets the bar even higher than what our chairman set it. So Levy's almost dug himself a hole by saying that. Right, well, you got to go and compete with that, Daniel, because that's what we're up against. And they're already ahead of us squad-wise. So when you judge it by that, you look at our window and you think, fuck me, we're not even close. This is bullshit. Are you taking the piss? Off the back of that, not just the result, but the performance against Bournemouth really set the cat amongst the pigeons for where we are 2 days before the window shuts. Had we have beaten Bournemouth, maybe the optics, maybe the mood's a bit different. It wasn't the loss, it was the performance. So when you bundle that all up, you look at transfer deadline day and you think, it's not good enough, man. It's not fucking good enough. However, this is where the logic comes in. If you look at every transfer window we've ever had, this is the best one in terms of incoming. This is the best transfer window I remember at Spurs under this owner in terms of incoming. Paulinho, Premier League proven, enforcer in the 6 that we needed. Short-term fix until we find a long-term solution. Kudus, right winger, beats the man, crosses, he'll get goals at some point. Better than anything we've got. He's here on a long-term contract. Xavi Simons, we've all said how good he is. Lubo thinks he's Gascoigne 2.0. Moani, right? Forget whether he's a risk or not. He's got something about him. He's got goals and assists under his record. It's better than what we've got. So,
but still, can you judge a window based on what someone else has done?
Well,
you can't control that. You can only control what you've done.
Yes, which is why I go back to the benchmark upon which we judge will be based on Daniel Levy's comments about we want to win the Champions League and the Premier League. So we're now looking at the main rivals to win the league. It's Liverpool and Arsenal and City. You look at what they've done, you think...
Yeah, but I don't think he didn't... Are you taking on his word that he meant now? He meant this season? Because that would have been embarrassing if that's what he meant.
Whether it's this season or over time, they're already ahead of us and they've pulled further ahead, is the point I'm making.
I agree with that.
So that essentially means we're not going to be happy with this window. But if you forget all of that noise and you forget all of the comments and you forget what Arsenal and Liverpool are doing and you just look at what we've done, in terms of incoming, this is the best window I think we've ever had. In terms of outgoings, I think we've been god-awful. I don't think we've done a good job. And I'm massively disappointed that we didn't keep at least 2 academy kids in the squad and nurture them and use them in Carabao Cup games, maybe a little bit of a Premier League cameo. That's pissed me off, but okay, it is what it is. So, Sean, it's such a difficult question to answer because as a Spurs fan, I should be sitting here saying, do you know what, that's the best window we've had. If we do a bit more business in January, then have another window like that next summer,
you're happy,
fuck me. We're actually looking quite all right. But based on what the rivals are doing, and they're the one Levy wants to beat, it's not been that good. It hasn't. And the weekend showed how serious the problem is, because I know we're going to get onto Bournemouth. That Bournemouth game was horrible. One game a week, and we looked knackered, and we looked out of ideas, and the talent isn't on the pitch.
Right, but I think when we
go to 2 or 3 games a week, it's going to stink. So the window needed to be better.
I think we might be conflating a few things there. Like I absolutely agree with you on the point of the notion of, like, if you're going to compare it to a certain set of metrics, like what are your alternatives, what are your competition doing in the light of what he said, 100% I agree with you. Like, they have pulled away. The top 4 are pulled away, 1,000,000%. If we break into the top 4, unbelievable achievement. It would take a massive shit show from one of them.
Not just them. We couldn't compete with Bournemouth. We couldn't compete with Bournemouth. I'm just saying, Sean, we couldn't even compete with Bournemouth.
Yeah, but then you could look at Manchester City. They lost. Man City have got 3 points from 9. They lost to Brighton. Are the Man City fans going to be looking at that particular game and saying we didn't do enough in the window? Or are they just going to say a bad day at the office or bad tactics? Like, you don't necessarily have to assume that because you got beaten by a very good team. This is the Premier League. The Premier League, anyone can beat anyone on their day. That's the beautiful thing about it. That it doesn't necessitate that the window's been subpar just because you had a bad day at the office. And I think it's also too early in the window to be saying that we were tired. If that's the case, then that's a real problem.
No, we looked tired, is what I said. We looked very lethargic. I don't know why. We just looked it. But look,
miles off it.
I know we're going to get onto the Bournemouth game later, but for me, in normal circumstances, this is a decent window. It really is. But given the nature of the amount of competitions we're in, the level of competition we're up against, if we want a decent season, this window hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Can we say, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? What before my internet crashes again, where do you think we would have been had Chelsea gone for Simmons, because he would have gone there, and Juventus coughed up the money? Where would we be scrambling around to do a deal right now? We'd be having a totally different conversation right now, because we would have been, I don't know where we would have been, because as I said, these two were very late opportunities. So what else would have been out there at this level of deal? The answer is
the same deals that were still out there, Johnny.
A deal with us.
The same deals that were still out there. Like, you could have got Lookman, but the fact that you got Kolo Muani, maybe, and again, speculation here, no one knows what goes on in the minds of the decision makers, but maybe they thought, not that sold on Lookman. Maybe I'm more sold on Muani, right? And so if Muani had turned us down, or if we didn't get Xavi Simons, maybe we would have gone all out for Paqueta. Maybe, and then if you're offering more money, if you're offering different levels of compensation, suddenly the other stories, like when I think it was Villa went for Paqueta, it was turned down point blank because it was a loan with an obligation or a loan with an option, whereas they wanted an all-out sale. So maybe if you don't get Simmons, maybe you pivot and you end up today with Paqueta instead. Who knows? There's a whole different timeline of reality, right, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just saying that, normally, you come with a plan. You look at Chelsea, they came with a plan. Liverpool, Arsenal, they came with plans. They knew who they wanted. Arteta said in end of March that they're going to spend big. They knew who they wanted, more or less. And we seem to have spent a lot of time on Morgan Gibbs-White. Nowhere with any of those. And listen, I'm happy with how we've ended up. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, how is this planning? We've been fortunate how the dice have landed for us, and I'm very happy for it. But you can't keep hoping for luck in the transfer window. And when the next one comes around, we got to be better organised, and get what we desperately need, like a left winger and like a left centre back.
Johnny, Sean, just one last thing before Lubo jumps in. I think another thing, if you look at it, let's just look at the players that are good that we signed. So Simmons, Kudus, Muani, and Palhinha. 2, we spent decent money on. The other 2 are cheap loan deals. So we haven't really put that cash injection in that a club that wants to win the Premier League and that wants to win the Champions League would do to build that squad. So it's almost been done on a classic Levy maneuver. And
let me add to that, Stel, if that's all right, just because it's on the financial
go.
before you jump in. Look, I think, and I'll overlay it by saying I agree with what you're saying in terms of the 4 signings is a clear uplift in quality compared to what we've been signing, right? I think everyone can agree that's a positive. They're established signings that, no matter how we ended up getting there, and I agree that it seems, as always, a lack of a coherent plan. But there's definitely a clear uplift in the quality, and the wages for these 4 will be higher than the likes of Odegaard and those that we've signed in the past. So, that gets a tick for me. But I think what will happen, right, when we crunch the numbers, Levy will do his classic thing and he'll say, well, actually, if you look at where we are on net spend comparably to the rest of the Premier League, we're 4th, right, on net spend financially this year out of all the Premier League clubs. That's because Danso and Tel are included financially, and he'll pitch it that way. He'll go, look, we're above some of the rest of the big 6, and we're 4th. But I think about it slightly differently. I've crunched the numbers excluding the likes of Tel and Danso and Vuskovic and Melia, because they're not actually going to be in our squad this year. So for all of the top teams, I've done the same thing, right? Basically said, in this summer window, what money have they actually spent on players that are going to go into the squad that weren't in the squad in the previous season? And when you adjust it that way, we're actually 10th in the Premier League for net spend. We've only spent 74 million-ish. And for gross spend, we're 12th in the Premier League. So I think that feeds into your point you were making, Stel, about, relative ambition. Have they really gone for it? I'm not sure we can make the argument they have, and I think we haven't taken advantage of the fact that we managed to do 2 really good loan deals in Paulinho and Muani, which would have created a lot of capacity to go and spend big on a left winger if we wanted to. And I think that for me is the real missed opportunity of this window.
Sorry, just quickly, I missed the first half of that. Are you saying that the loan deals are being spun into a demonstration of a lack of ambition?
No, I'm saying we should have used the advantage of the loan deals in the savings there to go and spend big elsewhere, and I feel like that's where we've missed that opportunity. For example, on a left winger,
that's what we were going to do. I thought that was what we were going to do, Connor. I thought there's no way.
But nobody's gone for Lookman, Johnny. And could it not just be that Thomas Frank thought, if I can't get Savio, I don't want anyone?
Listen, he did say.
So he wants Brennan Johnson and Odegaard then? I mean,
yeah, no, he did say though. In fairness, if I can't get the right player, I don't want any player. He only wants the right player because he's not building for a week or for 6 months. He's building for the future. So whether or not that's towing the party line or not, I'm not sure.
Johnny, can I ask you a question then? If that's the case, so if Frank has, again, this is an assumption, we don't know. It's an assumption. If Thomas Frank, on the assumption is, if I can't get Savio or Lookman, I want nobody. I'll work with Odegaard, I'll work with Tel, I'll work with Brennan Johnson. You can ship Solomon out, you can ship Bryan Gill out. Then, when they have stinkers and don't play well and it affects the team, we can't do the leave it's on you. We've got to say, Frank, this is on you.
Well, listen, I've got to be honest with you. I actually thought you get Lookman in, and then what that enables you to do is for these guys to play week in and week out, and it allows Thomas Frank to work his magic on developing Matthias Tel, Gray, Bergvall, Odegaard, behind the scenes without the pressure of them having to play and fail and not be up to scratch week in and week out. But this way you can't do that, because the left side means our left side is not good enough. That means that every single week we're going to be seeing Tel and Odegaard, because he's got rid of Solomon as well. Don't be surprised if Solomon goes on and starts bagging in the goals, by the way. I know a lot of people wanted rid of him. I would have kept Solomon until such a time as we bought in the left-sided winger.
This is my point then. That's on the manager, isn't it then? Or not?
Well, there's certainly an assumption here that if you guys are suggesting that the loan deal should have been a catalyst to spending more money, there's two assumptions. One is that there's space in the Champions League squad or the Premier League squad, which we're going to come to. Two is that the manager wanted more than he was given. And I think that it's been made abundantly clear that we were willing to drop 60 million on Morgan Gibbs-White, and we didn't. We were willing to drop more than that on Savio, and we couldn't because Man City wasted our time. I don't know how true any of these things are, but we were also interested in buying Ake or Akanji. Manchester City weren't interested. We were also interested in buying, a series of other players we've been linked with. Who knows the level of interest? But Lookman wasn't someone that came to Tottenham, and he wasn't someone that went anywhere. So if we can all think that Lookman was the guy, but nobody in the Premier League and nobody anywhere else apart from Inter had the intention to end up buying him. So maybe we're all just wrong about that particular player.
All we know is that on the final day when we're waiting for something big to happen because we haven't spent that money, we ended up making a profit on the final day.
Listen, Brian Gill was a loss.
We had 5 million.
Gill was a massive loss. Gill was a 30 million pound
I'm not
loss. talking
about that, right? I'm not interested in the freaking.
We're talking about final day net spend.
I'm talking about the final day. I'm talking about, we all know what Gill cost. We know that. What I'm saying is, on the day we expected to spend the money, while we've done the loans, we've loaned Paulinho, we've loaned Kolomuani, right? We had the money there to get the proper signing in.
But
right?
I feel like we're dressing up the loans as something that they're not. They're being dressed up because we didn't spend the money. Then the loans were like, it's almost like the loan deals should only be considered good because we therefore had more money to spend on permanent.
No, Sean.
I think you missed the start.
Sean, you missed the beginning bit.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
Connor, repeat what you said the beginning bit so Sean can.
Yeah, effectively, Sean. What I was complimenting was Stell's analysis in terms of, from a financial perspective, Levy will make the point that we're fourth on net spend, right, in the Premier League this summer. But when you actually,
when have he ever had that conversation?
He mentions net spend all the time, right? And every time we announce the results, he puts how much we've spent since the stadium. So, and how we're, I think he himself.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But actually, when you do the analysis in terms of actual squad improvements this year, i.e., not including the likes of Tel and Danso for us, because they were so financially they're in, but they're not an actual improvement on the squad we had last year. You do that for every other club as well. So there's examples, like Man City went and signed Naipat and the kid, and they've loaned him out. So he's not in their squad now. He's not impacting them right now. We actually get to 10th on adjusted net spend in the Premier League. So the point I was making was we had, in terms of relative ambition this summer, given the money we saved in terms of bringing in good players on loan, which obviously we absolutely should do. I don't think there's any excuse from a monetary perspective for us not to have gone the extra mile. Now, your point, I think, is a different one, which is a choice around, should we be making the choice to not sign someone because we can't get the target that Frank wants? Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of that.
That's definitely a separate point. Challenge. That's definitely a separate point. But the point I'm making, I hadn't heard you right. I hadn't heard you say that, but I'm still not entirely sure about what the point is. The idea is that this window doesn't look as good as it does. Forget the players that we've signed. The fact that 2 of them are on loan, therefore the window looks worse than it is because on a net spend basis. Is that the argument?
Well, the original point that Stell made was about, have Enoch or Levy changed their ways? Have they gone the extra mile in terms of injecting cash right now? And I think the analysis is no, they haven't. But what has definitely improved is the caliber of player that we're bringing in.
So what? But why does it matter? Why does it matter whether you've signed? I've made this point, and I'd love someone to tell me that there's a reason why my point is stupid. If you could sign every single player on a loan with an option that's predetermined at a price point, that if that player hits those numbers that are worthy of the activation of the option, why wouldn't you turn every deal into an option with a loan with an option?
Sean, you're missing the point. if we've got £200 million to spend, but we spend £110 million, why not go and spend that £90 million and get that left winger and be a better team? That's what we're saying.
Because if the player's not available for a reasonable amount of money, then you're going to end up overpaying. And then in 3 months' time, when January comes around, you guys are going to be people that are like, I don't care about the accounts. I don't care about any of that shit. When that conversation comes up, but you do care about the fact that there's £200 million to spend, you're going to demand that we overspend now to get something done that might not be a good fit, or you're going to end up.
Okay, so then,
of course, if you never spend it ever again, then of course it's a problem. But if you're loaning a player now with an option, it's more preferable to paying for it now and not knowing, as long as you get the first dibs on the option. And also, if you don't spend it now because the manager said, like, you know, if I can't get him, I don't want it. Or no, you're going to overspend on him. He's not worth, like, if in the case of Savinho, you're going to end up spending 90 million quid or 90 million euros. He's not worth that. And then even if you do pay it, then in January, like, that's going to be money that I can't spend on someone else. So there's always an opportunity cost, and I can't get my head around what the argument is.
So then,
Sean, can I throw another spin on this? In terms of buying players, in terms of the 4 players that have come in, regardless of whether they're on a loan or bought or purchased, the 4 are a step up from what we've seen last year, and that you're moving towards 2 years ago when you had Vicario, Udogie, Basuma, Maddison, Van der Ven all came in and they all went straight into the first team. So you've got a similar sort of window. You can argue about the relative strengths of the 4 players against the 5 that came in, but that's the same sort of window. For me, the biggest problem, that there have been 2 issues here this summer. And for me, I'm not going to, listen, everybody knows how I feel about these owners. They will never stretch and compete with the top 4 or 5. They're just not interested. It's never going to change. So you're just looking at it. How high can we go? What is our ceiling? The problem is, number one, Frank has come in, and he's come in. Maybe it would have been better. Maybe the optics wouldn't have been as good. Maybe if Levy had got rid or Charrington as Charrington got rid of Ange, maybe Frank would have come in a bit earlier. That would have helped, possibly. But the biggest thing for me was when Frank a few weeks ago came out and said that basically the way he operates is not the way he operated at Brentford is completely different. And the way Spurs operate doesn't align with what he's used to. So for me, I'm sure they've been looking at, so what does that mean? Not aligned. It's all done on data analysis. Brentford do data analysis. Tottenham do data analysis. So let's just look at it logically. Lange is looking at players with his data analysis of a certain that are not going to be paid more money than X. Frank's gone in.
Oh, wait, hang on.
So
you said let's look at it logically, and then you started with a massive assumption there. You started with a huge assumption.
Right.
But you started with a huge assumption.
Based on the wage bill coming down and down and down and down and down. That's facts.
We've broken the wage bill twice. We've broken the wage bill twice this summer.
Right, which is down to Frank. Now, if they're not aligned beginning of August, then we've lost a big chunk of that transfer window. So I actually think Frank is now starting to get things sorted and working his way, so that now with Paratici coming in, I don't see Lange at the club or demoted. He won't be doing what he does next week, I wouldn't have thought. Certainly not for the next transfer window. So we're going to be in a better position in January. Do I think we should have bought a left winger? Yes. Do I think there are more left wingers than Savinho and Lookman?
Ian, you're about to wander off into a different logic path. Continue on the logic path you were just making around the transfer strategy with Lang and Thomas Frank.
Okay, I now believe that Frank has got them working the way he wants them to work, because if Spurs weren't aligned with what he wants, then he's going to change that so that it is aligned with what he wants. So I think going forward, Spurs are going to be looking at the level of player that he wants At the end of the day, he's being paid the big bucks. It's his responsibility to get the results. He's got to bring in the right type of players.
So Frank never got a left winger. So we never got a left winger because of Frank then.
Yeah, it was.
I'm not saying that. I'm sort of drifting back to what Sean was saying.
You said let's do the logical thing here, and the point was obviously that Lang and Thomas Frank are not on the same page with regards to talent ID. But you made this giant assumption. The very first thing you said was that the reason why Thomas Frank and Lang are not on the same page is because Lang is on some some sort of forced path of a limited wage spend. How do you come to that?
Based on the type of players we've been buying previously, the wages that they're on, and now all of a sudden you've got Simmons who's come in and he's on 10 million a year. You know, we had with Madison.
You have no idea if that was part of the plan or not. Not Simmons specifically, but the part of the plan to sort of gradually to move it up. You're making an assumption that past performance equals future performance. That's not the same. That's not fair.
Listen, we were going the wages to revenue was going down and down and down and down. That's fact. We've all seen those figures. So now the wages to revenue should start going up. Frank is now looking for a better level of
not
player.
Because of Thomas Frank though.
I think Frank I think he's driving it personally. That's my opinion.
Just on the gut instinct because you don't want to give credit to anyone else.
It's not about giving credit or not giving credit. Frank has come in as manager. He wants his players. You know, he actually came out and said, and we quoted it on the show tonight, that he's not going to buy players. He's not going to bring in players that he doesn't want. So he's made it very clear by saying that he's in control of the transfers in terms of the players that are coming in. And he
100%. I'll meet you in the middle and say that there's an absolute likelihood that Johan Lang offered him a bunch of players and he didn't want them.
I'm sure
that doesn't mean that it was because of salary caps. It just means that Johan Lang might not be very good at talent ID for Thomas Frank's way of playing.
Okay. Well, listen. I feel that a lot of it's to do with wages. You know, you look at players over 100 grand, between 100 and 200. I'm not even talking about over 200. Let's forget that because the only players over 200 pretty much are the top five. But players between 100 and 200, you had Kulu, Romero, Madison. Werner's now gone. Sonny's gone. So we had 3. Villa have got, I think, 13. Now, I'm just using Villa because they're sort of level in terms of, I know they made a bad start.
They're a terrible example to use for a wage to turnover ratio, Lubo. Come on, mate. Let's not do that tonight. I'm trying to avoid a debate tonight. I'm trying to host. You drag me in every time, Lubo.
I'm talking about bringing in quality players that are going to command higher wages. So you know we can. You look at all the players. Half the players, if not
sorry,
more,
guys. This is
were young kids.
Lubo.
Lubo,
I'm confused. Can someone just clarify? Right, I'm not trying to catch anyone out. I just want some clarity so my head can understand. Either the board haven't spent the money available to go and sign a left winger that we are crying out for, or Frank has said, no, I don't want anyone unless it's my guy. I'll wait. Then the manager has chosen to work with Johnson, Odebert, and Tell. That's on him then.
Correct.
Can someone explain this? Have I got that right?
No, or the players that were available. In my opinion, you're right, mate. But if all the players that were available that Thomas Frank wanted would have cost too much money and would have taken away from the budget in January or for the future windows. At some point, the club has to say, I'm not paying City 120 million for a 21-year-old that scored a goal.
Sean, who makes the decision as to whether we spend the money now or park the money to spend it in January? Is that Levy, Lange? Or is that
it's hard to know, isn't it, without the specifics?
No,
look, I think, Sean, I think you make the point about opportunity cost, which is a valid one, right? I.e., we spend too much on someone now that maybe creates us an issue in the future. But at the same time, you can have that the other way. There's a huge opportunity cost of not signing a left winger because it could mean that we don't qualify for, finish top 5, right? And all of us, I think, acknowledge that the left wing was an absolute priority, and we had a whole summer window, plus the argument that we should have been succession planning for Son better anyway, because we knew he was declining, and you knew he was our marquee player that we needed to replace. So, I think there's a whole number of arguments there.
But we'll never know on any of those fronts, mate, because they're different. They're new reality timelines, aren't they?
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't personally feel yet that we are ready as a squad to do the Liverpool thing of waiting for the right signing. I think when you've got a glaring hole in the team, which we have on the left wing, which could ultimately cost us, in my view, and that left wing signing was as important as any other signing for me that we have made,